Distributive property. Who can tell me about the distributive property? Break down what? Break down the numbers. It's when you take a problem like you have a problem like 45 times 30. Yeah, that's going to start doing it. Nice. Raise your hand if you can tell me an equation I could write for the number 45. Okay, so you do 5 times 9, and we also talk about the commutative property, which means you can rearrange numbers. You do 5 times 9, or 9 times 5. That equals 45, right? Then what do you do? No? It's 9 times 5, but then what do I do? Then what do I do?
So you have 9 times 5, and then you try it again, and then you do the 5 times 6, so it's not just 9 times 5 and 6 times 5.
Okay, but I have a number there that ends in a 0. And what's the number that makes my life oh so much better?
10, so you do 3 times 10.
Okay, that's called a distributive property when you break down a number like that. Well, we already know 9 times 5 is 45, right? So we could just say, I'll tell you, this pen today is going to be the death of me. 45 times, what number do we want to take it by? Remember, you do your numbers that aren't 10 first. So what's the other number we're going to multiply it by? Okay, multiply it by 3. 5 times 3 is, everybody?
15.
Carry the 1. 3 times 4 is? 12. See, my problem is all I can think about is that line right now. It's getting on my last nerve that is doing random lines on my board and causing an issue with me here. So 135 looks almost like a fraction, doesn't it, with the line there? So now what do I do? Yeah, I calibrated a little bit ago. I might do it in a little while here. But what was your first response that you just said? Okay, because it's times 10, and we know that anything times 10, you're going to add a 0. Now, one question we had yesterday that I had to do a little bit of research on, so we're continuing to today with this, is on your paper, like the problem set 1. Actually, let's look at homework. Homework question B. So this is 2A13. Says think 43 tens times 3 tens. I feel like I'm up here playing Star Wars or something, and I'm pew pew, you know. Just you just don't want to be standing at the end of that streak as it comes out. And times 3 tens. It's like lightsabers, isn't it? Now, what do you have to multiply by to get to the tens place? What do you have to multiply by to get to the tens place?
43 times 3.
Well, what do you have to multiply by to get from the ones place to the tens place? What do you multiply by? 10. So I had to, how many tens? Oh my goodness. It's like a bobby. It's like a little bobby pin or something. So I have 2 numbers in the tens place, right? So if there's 2 tens, if I have 10, oh my goodness. If I have 2 tens, I have 10 to what power? 10 to what power? What do you think? If I have 2 tens, what power? Yeah, to the power of 2, right? And you have learned that 10 to the power of 2 equals 100. So on your paper, when you multiply 430 times 30, we know that it's going to be hundreds because I have how many tens? 2. So you see where it says think. 43 tens times 3 equals blank hundreds. Well, that's how they got that because in the problem you have 2 tens, right? So there's going to be how many zeros in your answer? You have 2 tens, how many zeros? 2. Well, look at the other one. Let's look at D real fast. Hundreds and hundreds. How many zeros are in 100? 2. So if I have 4 zeros, what number will I have? What's a number with 4 zeros? See, this is the part yesterday that was throwing me off, so I didn't want to talk to you about it until I could take a good look at it. 10,000. So in D, where it says equals 176, what do you think you're going to write there? 10 thousandths. Does that make sense how they've done this? So if I have a 10 and 1,000, so I have this. On E, I have a 10 with a lightsaber coming out of it. Oh my goodness. These are the trying times. Times 1,000. So look at E. It says blank tens, so we have tens, times blank thousands equals 40. Well, how many zeros are we going to have total in our answer? 10 times 1,000. 4 zeros, and we said that 4 zeros is the same as 10,000, or 10 to the power of 4. So that's how you get that. See, yesterday I was trying to figure out how did they know that 43 ones and 3 tens would be tens, you know? I couldn't figure out a way to tell you how to do it. So I went to Miss. Okay, we're going to solve this problem. And the first thing I would tell students to do is to look at the numbers that aren't zeros. So in the first number, we have 4,400 or 4,400. What are my numbers other than 0? 4 and 4, so I have the number 44. So I'm going to start with 44. Well, I have 2 zeros. So I'm going to come up to my place value chart, and on your place value chart, you should be doing this. I'm going to add 2 zeros and a lightsaber. Okay, so, gotta get through this, guys. So I have 2 zeros. And we know everything is based on 10, so there's got to be a 1 that goes somewhere, right? Raise your hand if you can tell me where the 1 is going to go with those 2 zeros. In the hundreds place. So what did I just multiply 44 by to get the 2 zeros? What did I have to multiply by?
You multiplied by 400.
No? 100. Because 4400 has the 2 zeros in it, right? And if I put 2 zeros in my place value chart with the 1 in front of it, it starts at the hundreds place, and I end up with 100. I'm going to get my board looked at. And then we're multiplying. Now what do I need to put? Should I start drawing sticks? Now what do I need to put? I want to do 400? What do I want to do? How did you know it's 4 times 100? Oh my goodness. I don't know, a lot. So, raise your hand if you can tell me what's 4 times 100? 400. So that's correct, isn't it? So now what do I do? I've got my numbers all separated. We called that, what method was that called that we used to get our numbers separated into different equations? What was that called? Distributive property. So now what do I need to do? I've got all broken down where I have my numbers with hundreds. Now what do I do? Okay, remember you can do this process that they call the commutative process property, which means that you can rearrange your numbers when you're multiplying, and it won't change your answer. So I could rearrange my numbers to say, what can I do to make that problem less confusing? What can I add to that problem to make it less confusing? Number 3. What did I use in the problem above to make it less confusing? I broke them down by using distributive, but what do you think? Parentheses. Because that tells me I can multiply those two together, and I can multiply these two together. Now, when you rearrange the numbers, that's called, does anyone remember? No? When they're traveling back and forth to different places, they're called the commutative property. And when your parentheses are associating with other numbers than they did earlier, what do you call that? Associative. So now we can actually work our problem out. 44 times 4. Well, we could do it the way they do it, couldn't we? The way we learned too that one day, remember that one day. So we have 44 times 4, and we can take, oh my goodness. My lesson's taking a whole lot longer today just because of the technology. And remember our class Einstein said, start at the end and go forward, and that's what we've done ever since. Thank you for that helpful tip. So we take 4 times 4, everybody, what is it? What do I do with the 1? Carry it over there. 4 times 4 again. Plus what? Oh my goodness. 17, carry the 1 over here. There's nothing to add it to, so we'll put it over here. Okay, so it's 176, but then I have 200s. And if you remember correctly, if I have 200s, I have 10 to what power? 10 to the power of, if I have 200s. I have 200s, 10 to the power of 4. Because if I multiplied 100 times 100, how many zeros would I end up with? 4. And when you do 10 to the power of 4, you're saying that's 10 times 10 times 10, 4 times, and then you would have 4 zeros. So I'm going to start with my zeros, because I don't want to forget that there was 100 times 100 on there. So I'm going to start with my zeros. How many zeros am I going to put here? 10 to the power of 4. 4 zeros. Well, then what am I going to write in front of that? What was my answer that I got when I multiplied 44 times 4? See how that works? It's not too hard once you start looking at things. Yes, ma'am.
I don't understand how it's 10 to the power of 4.
Well, if we had 10 to the power of 2, the way that would look would be 10 times 10, right? Are you just having me write these zeros just so I can make all these lines everywhere? Is that what's going on? What's 10 times 10? Huh? 100. So let's look at this. And we said that if we had 10, 10 to the power of 0 is 1 because there's no zeros. So if you start with just the 1 and you go over one place because you've gone up times 10, right? And you go over another place that's times 10, how many times did we just move? 2. So that's 10 to the power of 2 because we've moved 2 places over. So if you have 4 zeros, how many places have you just had to move? 4 times, and so that's 10 to the power of 4. Well, your life today is going to get a lot easier, I think. That's why I decided to go ahead and do lesson 2 with lesson 1 from yesterday. Nope, I have not paused it. So we have this number. We're on problem set for lesson 2, 1A. You know, I would just quit if the whole lesson wasn't depending on people being able to see what I'm writing. It says round the factors to estimate the products. Now, this is what I like about this. We do what they call front-end estimation. Raise your hand if you can tell me what you think front-end estimation might mean. What do you think? Okay, the first number. And when we rounded earlier this year, what was that thing that we drew to make sure we got the answer right? What was that thing called that we drew? You know what that was called? That we drew we would decompose, and then we drew this thing, and a vertical number line. And how many numbers right now do we have up there that will need a vertical number line? 2. So here's one for my 597. I think it wants to go with the 52, but it's not going there, okay? And I'm going to have one for my 52. So try not to focus so much on the lines as learning how to do this, okay? Because your assignment tonight isn't going to be about lines unless you're doing the vertical number line. So what is my front number in 597? 5. So that's the minimum, right? Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I can ignore it to a certain point, but when it's... Okay, 5. And what's the next number up when I count up? 6. So that goes at the top. Remember, that's a maximum. For crying out loud. And people wonder why my job gets me so stressed out. Okay, now, what is that halfway point? What are we going to put for the halfway point? The 5. We're halfway, right? So the number's going to be 5. And then the number after it has to be at least 5 in order to go up, right? Well, here's my first number, 5. What's the number after? 9. So it would come right here, wouldn't it? Is it closest to 5 or is it closest to 6? This should end up on bloopers. 6. So what do you think instead of 597, what am I going to write in that first blank? It says 597 times 52 equals, what's going to be the first number I'm going to write? 6? If we just rounded the number, would it just be 6 or what would it be? What do you think? Yep, 600 because the 5 is in what place? The hundreds. And if we were doing this on a place value chart, you would see that Your 5 was in the hundreds place, and that's why it's so important to always use your place value chart, because then you would see every number behind it becomes a 0. So the next number we're going to work on is 52. So what's my minimum number going to be, everybody? And my maximum.